The sky turned fiery, the sea trembled, and the massive Russian bridge shook as if the world itself was splitting, a moment of chaos that ripped through steel and concrete, a sight that left every witness frozen and every heart pounding with disbelief. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into the explosive moment when the Russian bridge collapsed into the sea, an event that shook nations, altered strategies, and left the world staring in awe at the raw power of destruction. The bridge had stood for years, a marvel of engineering, a symbol of connection and control, spanning miles of water, carrying traffic supplies, and a sense of permanence. It was a lifeline for logistics, a path for armies and civilians alike, and a testament to ambition and pride. For years, people crossed it without thought, a routine passage, a mundane commute, until the day that routine ended in an instant when the explosion tore through its supports. Water erupted skyward, metal groaned, and concrete gave way, sending massive sections plummeting into the dark waves below. What happened was deliberate, precise, and devastating, an underwater detonation placed in the heart of the bridge's support structure, a strike planned to perfection, a calculated blow that transformed a symbol of strength into a scene of chaos. The sea swallowed the debris, and the world watched in shock. Emergency sirens wailed across nearby towns. People gathered on cliffs and beaches, staring at the plume of water and smoke rising high. A surreal scene as twisted steel and broken roadway floated like wreckage of a dream. The ground trembled and the air filled with tension, a moment frozen in fear and amazement. The collapse was not only physical but psychological. It shattered confidence in safety, in permanence, and in power. The bridge had carried more than vehicles. It had carried pride and perception, and both fell with the debris, leaving a vacuum that was impossible to ignore and impossible to replace. Authorities scramble to assess the damage. Engineers dove into the cold water, measuring cracks and bends, estimating the cost of repairs, while rescue teams searched for anything that could be salvaged. The scale of destruction was overwhelming. The sight was unforgettable, and the implications far-reaching for the planners and strategists. This was a lesson in vulnerability. Even the most solid structures can fail under the right conditions, and even the proudest. The event caused immediate disruptions, traffic halted, supplies delayed, and the usual flow of life interrupted. The bridge had been a major artery for both civilian and military movement, and now it was gone, forcing new routes, longer detours, and greater risk. The simple act of crossing the strait had become dangerous and uncertain. Locals shared their stories, windows shattered, animals fleeing, and people gripping each other in fear. The sound of the blast echoed through the hills and valleys. The shock traveled miles and left a lasting imprint on memory. The bridge had been a backdrop of normalcy, and now it was a monument to the unexpected. Experts analyzed every frame of video, the rise of the water column, the twisting of girders, the fall of massive sections, the trajectory of debris, all pointing to a precise underwater strike. A demonstration of both courage and planning. The scale of the operation was immense, the technical skill remarkable, and the result undeniable. The impact went beyond the immediate vicinity. It resonated across nations, sending messages of vulnerability, of risk, and of the power of precision. It was a display that not only damaged a bridge, but challenged assumptions that strength and size guarantee invulnerability. The largest structures are only as safe as those who protect them. Governments and media reacted quickly. Words were chosen carefully, statements issued. But the imagery spoke louder than any report. The broken bridge stood as testimony to sudden change, the rapid transformation from a solid lifeline to a fractured WA. Stellan captured the imagination and fear of everyone who saw it. Military analysts emphasized the strategic consequences. Supply lines disrupted, troops delayed, operations hindered. The loss of a major route required urgent adaptation and alternative planning. Logistics became more complex. Morale was shaken, and the perception of control questioned. Every day after the blast, planners adjusted strategies and recalculated risks. The psychological dimension can't be understated. Seeing the bridge collapse was a jolt to the senses, a symbol of the precariousness of power and the reality of conflict, a reminder that even the mightiest constructions are not immune to human ingenuity and determination when applied with focus and precision. The scene of destruction spread rapidly through social media, images and video, capturing the plume of water, the twisted steel and broken deck shared millions of times, creating a narrative of defiance and capability that transcended the local context and reached globe. Battle audiences inspiring discussion and analysis. Engineers on site worked tirelessly, measuring and cataloging the damage The pillars submerged in water revealed the force of the blast. The water still shimmered with debris and fragments. The smell of burned materials lingered, while calculations and assessments tried to make sense of what the eyes had witnessed. The damage told a story that words could scarcely capture. Repair plans were immediate, yet challenging. The scale of destruction immense, and the engineering required precise and careful work. Every day of delay had operational consequences, and every miscalculation could endanger further recovery. The process was slow, methodical, and fraught with risk, but inevitable, because bridges are too vital to abandon. For civilians, the collapse changed routines forever. Crossing the strait no longer simple. Now a journey filled with caution, anxiety, and awareness of fragility. The bridge had been a quiet presence, and now it was a constant reminder of the power of sudden events. The ordinary became extraordinary, and the familiar dangerous. The strategic dimension for the attacker was clear, a demonstration that a single, well-placed strike can disrupt and dominate without massive armies or prolonged campaigns. The target chosen carefully, the method selected precisely, and the timing executed flawlessly. The result was both physical destruction and symbolic victory, a combination of engineering and strategy. The bridge collapse also raised questions about security and preparedness. How could a structure so vital be vulnerable? What intelligence failures occurred? What defensive measures were lacking? And how would future projects be fortified to prevent repeat incidents? These questions dominated discussions in governmental circles and planning rooms. Civilians and military observers alike were struck by the scale, the twisted girders, the floating debris, the sections dangling over water. The shockwave of sound felt miles away, and the waves that foe, loud, carrying pieces of concrete and steel to distant shores. The moment was cinematic, terrifying, and unforgettable, a dramatic lesson in vulnerability. As news spread globally, analysts emphasized the lesson for modern warfare that infrastructure cannot be taken for granted, that strategic assets are always at risk, and that planning for defense is as important as the act of construction itself. The collapse was a warning and a teaching tool wrapped in an extraordinary visual event. The ripple effects on military operations, immediate delayed convoys, rerouted supply chains interrupted, and strategic momentum altered. Every commander had to adjust, every logistician reconsider the flow of resources, and every leader calculate the new risks that came with the loss of the bridge. The consequences were tangible, immediate, and lasting. The human dimension persisted, locals recounting fear stories, injuries minor, but trauma lasting, the sounds of metal tearing, the roar of water, and the panic across the air. Odes became memory markers, a shared experience among those who witnessed it firsthand, and through media, the wider population also absorbed the event emotionally and mentally. In the larger picture, this collapse became a symbol, a narrative of vulnerability and defiance, a story of how determination and skill can countersize an apparent strength. A teaching moment for engineers, military planners, and the public, a striking example of the power of a single calculated action to alter perception and reality alike. Over time, the broken bridge became a place of study, photography, documentation, and analysis. Engineers and strategists visited repeatedly, measuring and noting every detail, learning how structures fail and how attacks succeed, providing knowledge for future design and defense efforts. The collapsed structure turned into a classroom of destruction and resilience. The event is also a reminder that history is shaped by singular moments, moments that capture imagination and shift the course of actions. The bridge collapse will be remembered not only for its immediate physical impact, but for the symbolic meaning it carried across nations, inspiring discussion, reflection, and reassessment. As reconstruction efforts began, plans carefully drafted the process, painstaking every beam, every support, examined the lessons of failure, recorded the analysis, detailed the reinforcement methods, updated and improved the design, strengthened. Yet the memory of collapse would remain an inseparable part of the bridge's story, reminding all who passed it of fragility and power. For the world watching it, served as a stark reminder that control can be challenged, and that even the mightiest structures are vulnerable, that every symbol of power can be tested, and that preparation, vigilance, and respect for risk are vital. The broken bridge became a lesson not just in engineering, but in psychology, strategy, and perception. In the end, the Russian bridge collapsing into the sea is a story of ambition destroyed, by precision of power challenged by determination, and of human skill tested against human will. It is a reminder that nothing is permanent in conflict, and that a single moment can redefine perception, operations, and narratives alike. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for